Happy Monday to our dear nurses worldwide, and welcome back to AMN Academy, where we give free lessons on the required examinations for you to work as a nurse in the United States of America. Every second and fourth Monday of the month, it's the turn of 9.09er English to give you free lessons on the English examinations that you need for your visa screen and license endorsement. And don't forget, every first and third Monday of the month, it's the turn of the NCLEX Review Center partners of AMN to give you free lessons on the next generation NCLEX. With me tonight is Sir Brian Martin Shawson of 9.09er English. And actually, in our last 5 years of doing the online review, this Facebook Live session is always a blockbuster because it's on the spot speaking. For some of you, you might have seen Sir Brian write an essay on the spot, but for tonight, it's a different approach. For quite some time, we're asking Sir Philip to do on the spot speaking. It's just that Sir Philip has problems with StreamYard. That's why he cannot join us for our Facebook Live session. So it's my turn and Sir Brian's turn to do on the spot speaking. So if you know anyone planning to go to the United States of America and wanting to work as a nurse, then they need to watch this Facebook Live session via the AMN Healthcare International Facebook page. And let me reiterate, by the way, that AMN sponsors free English review with 9.09er English. So you don't spend a single centavo for your English examination preparation. All that you do is to sign up with AMN. When they endorse you to us, you're going to enjoy unlimited review program for your preferred English examination, plus daily one-on-one coaching. So we'd like to ask our live viewers to kindly indicate your location. Please tell us where you're joining us from. And while you're doing that, let's ask Sir Brian to greet all of our live viewers worldwide. Good evening, Sir Brian.
Hello, good evening, Sir Irvin, and good evening, everybody attending the session today. I know that a lot of you are so interested to know how to answer questions for the speaking examination, and this is the perfect session for you because we're going to teach you how to attack your questions on exam day. So if you have friends and family members who are taking the examination soon, particularly the IELTS, please invite them over and let's have a wonderful learning session tonight.
Thank you for that, Coach Brian. I also would like to highlight that this Facebook Live session is not just for nurses. As long as you have plans of taking an English examination, then you are invited to join our Facebook Live session for tonight. It's just that if you know any nurse who has plans of going overseas and does not have any employer yet, then AMN Healthcare International is the company that will help you reach your American dream. Please send a message to AMN Healthcare International, or you can visit their website and submit your resume so that you're going to call or communication from the representatives of AMN in order for you to jumpstart your journey in going to the United States of America. For tonight, we have prepared some slides for you. So let's take a look at the slides so that we can discuss the content of these slides. And after that, we're going to do the on-the-spot speaking. Sir Brian, your turn.
All right, so today we are going to be comparing first the various English exam options that you have, particularly if you want to apply for US visa screen. So I prepared a table right here, and Sir Irvin and I will be discussing to you the various features of these English exams by parameter, and also what IELTS, OET, and PTE speaking would look like in the actual examinations. I'd probably want to start this first by talking about the response time flexibility. For IELTS, you have moderate flexibility when it comes to the response time because IELTS is an interview. So you can probably think of what you're going to say before you blurt out your words. And you're also going to be given some time to prepare before responding, particularly in the second part of the test, your part 2 long term. Now, for OET speaking, you also have moderate preparation time and flexibility here because you're going to be given 3 minutes right before you start speaking during the role play. And it's okay to have natural pauses in between your speech for OET speaking. Unfortunately, PTE speaking doesn't really have that much flexibility when it comes to the response time, because you have to think fast, you have to act fast, because every examination question that you're going to be provided has minimal time, not only for your response but also for you to process the information. Like, it's very snappy. Every question needs to be answered very quickly because the test is only for 2 hours. And I think Sir Irvin can actually talk about the environment of these examinations so well, because we have had a lot of students who have taken these exams and they have their own qualms about these different exams.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Sir Brian. Before I compare the environment of these high stakes English examinations that you can use for your visa screen and license endorsement, let's greet some of our live viewers who have indicated their location. So, Jamila is joining us all the way from the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Good afternoon to our dear nurses who are based in Europe. Hopefully, you're going to have a great time with our Facebook Live session for tonight. So before we go to that on-the-spot speaking, first, we are comparing the different English examinations. Jane is joining us from the United Arab Emirates. Good afternoon to our dear brothers and sisters in the Middle East. And then, the following viewers are from the Philippines. Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat. There's Rodilyn, Princess Heart. Avelino Bola is in Japan right now. Good evening to our Asian brothers and sisters. Shayla is watching us all the way from Zimbabwe. Hello to our African nurses, and we're so thankful because in the last 5 years of doing Facebook Live sessions with AMN, clearly there are so many African nurses who are regularly watching our shows. So thank you so much for your patronage. And if you're also available every Friday, there is also another AMN show, that's Onwards and Upwards show, to talk about anything related to you working in the United States and living the American dream. And Vergara here has a comment. I recently took my IELTS examination in December and I got 8.0 in speaking. Wow, just wow. 8 in speaking is way higher than the requirement of 7.0. And later, we're going to talk about national average. Let's move on to Mary Ann, who is based in UAE. And then Cherish is all the way from Australia. Wow. It's like United Colors of Benetton or United Nations for tonight, because we have live viewers from Asia, Europe, Africa, and Australia. Hopefully, we also have some viewers watching us from North and South America. Carlos TJ is from Mandug, Davao. Maayong gabi sa tanan ako mga kaigsuonan din sa Dakbayan sa Davao. Attend tonight, and we promise that after this Facebook Live session, you will have a better understanding of the speaking subtest, not just for IELTS, but also for other English examinations. And then, Rich Van, who is one of our former coaches and a medical technologist, for that matter, based in Pangasinan, is also watching us tonight. So thank you so much to our 54 live viewers for attending our Facebook Live session with AMN Healthcare International. So earlier, Sir Brian asked me to compare the environment of these high-stakes English examinations that you need to pass before you can work as a nurse in the United States. And let's talk about IELTS speaking first. For IELTS speaking, it's just you and the examiner. Nobody else. Whether it's done face-to-face or video call, it's just you and the examiner. So now you might want to ask, like, what's the assurance that you're going to have video call speaking? And what are the chances that you're going to have face-to-face speaking in the IELTS? All of this actually changed in 2020 during the start of the pandemic. That's because during that time, 100% video call speaking. And then in 2023, 2024, that's when they offered face-to-face speaking only in places where internet connection is intermittent. That means to say 90% chance that you're going to have your speaking examination via video call, and only 10% chance that it's face-to-face. If it's face-to-face, there is a table that separates you and the examiner. And now no one is wearing face masks, no more face shields. The invigilator is just outside to allow you and the examiner to have some privacy. But what if 90% of the time you're going to have the video call speaking? So it's just you, the computer, and some scratch papers and pen in front of you. And when you're done with your speaking test, all you have to do is to ring the bell to remind the invigilator, okay, hey, I'm done. I can go out. What's the advantage of this one? You won't be distracted by anyone inside the speaking cubicle while you are talking. That makes the IELTS the ideal English examination for nurses. No wonder why AMN endorses IELTS. That's because IELTS is the only English examination accepted in literally all of the states in the United States of America. Some people might have taken the other English tests. However, when they apply in a certain state for a license endorsement, unfortunately, that English examination is not accepted by that state. So our experience in the last few years, in the last 2 years in particular, 2022 to 2024, some nurses had to repeat their English examination in certain states that only IELTS is acceptable. That's why AMN thought, why not inform our nurses that IELTS is the safest choice, because it really doesn't matter which particular state you would like to work in. For as long as you take IELTS, that's accepted in all of the states in US. Now, let's move on to the other English examinations. For OET, the environment is basically the same. It's just you and the examiner. But most of the time, we don't really call that person talking to you as an examiner in OET speaking. It's more of interlocutor. So what's the difference? In IELTS, the person you are talking to is the one grading your performance. But in OET, the interlocutor is basically used as a prop to facilitate communication. All OET examiners are based in Melbourne, Victoria, Australia, and the only way for them to evaluate your performance is your voice. They can't even see your face. Facial expressions, gestures do not matter in OET, because for OET, it's the quality of your English and your voice. These are the components that matter to the OET examiners based in Melbourne. Guys, while IELTS and OET allow you and the examiner slash interlocutor to have some privacy, that's definitely not the case in the last two English examinations known as PTE, Pearson Test of English, and the Michigan English Test. Arguably, the advantages of both PTE and MET is that both of them are short. You get to finish the examination in 2 hours. In 2 hours, when you're done, you can go out of the computer lab and then wait for your results. Now, in PTE though, you're not going to have that privacy, knowing that there are like 15 to 20 candidates inside the computer lab talking all at the same time. So before you choose your English examination, better ask yourself, are you that kind of person who is easily distracted by other people? Then maybe PTE is not for you. Or if you really want to take PTE, we recommend that when you practice, you have to be in a noisy environment. Perfect example, public market. Because people sometimes are shouting in the public market. And that's what some PTE candidates do. They scream at the top of their lungs in order for them not to hear the voices of the other candidates talking together. While for MET or the Michigan English Test, you also talk with all the other candidates inside the room. The big difference is for MET, usually it's just you or 2 candidates or 3 candidates taking the test together. Unlike in PTE, that there are 15 to 20 candidates talking all at the same time. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. I have given you an objective comparison of the environment in speaking for the top 4 English examinations that you can use for your US visa screen. What about the next talking point, Sir Brian?
The next one talks about how you're going to be scored for your speaking examination. And for IELTS, for OET, and for MET, there's actually a human factor involved. So your speaking examination will be human scored. So there might be a little bit of variability depending on who your examiner will be. However, for IELTS, it's actually your communication skills that will be assessed more than anything else, not your knowledge, not your intelligence factor, not the impressive responses that you can provide, but instead your ability to communicate and get the message across, your pronunciation, your fluency, the vocabulary that you're able to utilize during the conversation, and also probably, of course, your grammar. These are the aspects that you're going to be graded for in the IELTS speaking examination. Whereas in OET, although there is a language factor, we have grammar, of course, we have vocabulary or the appropriateness of your language. A large chunk of your score will also be from the communicative components of your speaking, which means your ability to communicate in the healthcare environment. Therefore, the OET speaking examination is only exclusively intended for those people who have a little bit of background in the healthcare environment or probably a little bit of exposure to the healthcare field. Now, the PTE speaking examination is purely administered through a computer, and it is to a large extent AI scored. I'm saying to a large extent because there were changes that were implemented last year that changed the game totally. To give you an update, and I don't know if everyone already knows, since November 4, 2024, the PTE started recruiting human experts to grade two components of the speaking examination, which are describe image and read the lecture. Previously, everything was scored by an AI system, but now your read the lecture and describe image, which are arguably the hardest parts of the examination, are now partly rated by humans to ascertain whether your responses are original or authentic and not memorized. So, for those people who are still using templated responses or memorized scripts or trying to hack their way through passing the examination, unfortunately, right now, those tactics will not anymore work in the PTE. You need to make sure that you're using authentic or original language. Everything must be organic now because there are human raters who are going to assess two parts of your speaking exam. Although the rest of the parts of the speaking examination will still be AI scored, and there is a large uh, degree of accuracy in grading you in PTE. So, one thing that you should know is that when you're asking for remarking, because all of these exams do have an avenue or an opportunity for you to challenge your scores, I wouldn't necessarily advise that you file for remarking for PTE speaking because, in my experience, teaching this for over 5 years, 10 years even, I haven't seen a person get a higher score in PTE speaking after remarking. And that's because of the accuracy of the AI system in grading you. Unlike IELTS or OET, in which sometimes when you get the low score and you want to challenge your score, there is a propensity for your scores to go higher. Now, when it comes to the MET, the fun part about it is it's a relatively short speaking examination. And it's actually very much focused on your ability to speak, your ability to talk. So, to a large extent, your ability to speak is what's going to be graded and not so much what you're saying. So, you have to just make sure that your answers are matching the prompt and make sure that your language is solid and you're going to get a good score as long as you're communicating the message across, even if your answers are a little bit crazy or might not be the most impressive responses. It's a little bit on the shallow side. As long as the language aspect is really good, you're going to get a high score in the MET. In fact, in our experience, so many of our students with very little preparation have gotten extremely high scores in MET speaking. And if you're probably looking for an examination that is a little bit simpler on the speaking aspect, then MET is a good choice. However, IELTS is probably still the best examination to take if you're considering all of the different factors, like the accessibility of the examination, the cost of the test, and the utility of the exam because it can be used for practically everywhere. And right now, the results are even faster. So, yeah, If you're looking for an examination that's super flexible, then IELTS is the best choice for you. Now
Great.
let's move on to the next slide, sir.
Yes, I was about to say that maybe we can now move on to the next slide after we have compared the four English examinations speaking component. Remember that if you're a nurse going to the United States, speaking is more important than any other subtest. And later on, we're going to talk about the required scores. But I think Sir Brian here has another slide prepared for us. Yes, there you go. So the first one, it has something to do with preparation strategy. So for IELTS speaking, remember that for task one and task three, you are not given time to prepare for your responses. Immediately after you are asked, you have to open your mouth and start talking. So what is the kind of preparation that we recommend for IELTS speaking? Definitely, it's important that you read the questions beforehand. Fortunately, for the reviewees of 9.09er English and all the nurses endorsed to us by AMN Healthcare International, we have compiled more than 2,000 of the speaking questions that come out again and again and again in my last 19 years of teaching. I hate to say this. I started in 2006 and now it's 2025. This is clearly an indicator of my age in this industry. As they say, I'm already a dinosaur in this industry. So working in this industry for 19 years, we have compiled more than 2,000 questions. So our reviewees tell us, sir, thank you so much for compiling these questions. But sir, don't you think it's a lot better if you could also provide us with the sample responses? And I'm glad you asked. That's because we actually have a book here, the IELTS Band 7 Speaking Guide, where there are sampled responses so that you get to have an idea of the approaches, the various approaches that you can use in order to answer the questions in the speaking subtest. Now, what about for OET speaking? For OET speaking, we have several role play cards. And if you go to your 9.09er online review dashboard, we also have sample audio scripts of OET speaking role plays. And we have new OET speaking role play cards and modeled responses, both in text and in audio. So for some people, they already know that OET speaking is more of a role play, but they don't know exactly the flow. That's why we took it on our hands and we decided to come up with sample responses, and we also asked voiceover artists to record the sample responses in order for you to understand what kind of therapeutic communication works best for OET speaking. Now, what about for PTE speaking? Yes, we had to admit that for quite some time, templates worked, as in WORKED, past tense, worked, especially when it first came to the Philippines in 2015. But remember that PTE is evaluated not by a human being, or at least for still majority of the components like listening, reading, and writing, because for speaking, now there are human raters. We would like to reassure you, though, that AI or technology evolves. It's like iPhone. The iPhone you had in 2015 is already obsolete in 2025, which means to say the AI used by PTE in 2015 is not exactly the same AI in 2025. That's why they introduced human raters to easily catch the candidates who use memorized, templated, scripted responses that candidates usually find on the internet. Sir Bry, I remembered in one of our Facebook Live sessions, you shared that sample template that people typically use. Can you please use or share with us an example of maybe one sentence or two sentences of templated responses in PTE speaking that candidates must never use in 2025 if they want to work in the United States and pass the exam?
Certainly, sir. So, for described image, this is something that a lot of candidates use because they've memorized this. This is all over YouTube. People would say, I can see a very beautiful image of a blank. I can see blank colors. I can see blank. I can see blank. And in conclusion, this image is informative and may be used for future references. Might be very nice, but that's not going to work anymore these days.
Guys, if that is the kind of English that you used when you pass your English examination, do you really think you can assimilate, you can work in an environment in the United States of America? Do you really think that your employers prefer nurses who have just memorized templates, and when they start working in the hospital, they can barely communicate? To be quite honest with you, we have a lot of partner hospitals or partner recruitment agencies or partner employers who enroll their nurses already in the United States of America. USRNs already, they enroll them in our program, like the conversational English course, because they passed their English examination. But when they started working in the US, they cannot even construct sentences, maybe because they only use templates when they passed their English test in 22, 2023, or in 2024. But now, the thing is, the passing score for PTE speaking is no longer 50. It's already 63. So if the passing rate for PTE speaking before was like 80 to 90% when it was 50 as the passing score. Now that the passing score is 63, perhaps it should be around 70 to 80% anymore. So gone were the days when people considered the templates as their saviors, because the truth is in 2025, that won't work anymore. So what to do? To prepare for your PTE speaking, we have AI-powered mock examinations as low as 1,500 pesos for 60 days. So that's just like what? 750 pesos for 30 days in order for you to encounter questions that typically come out in the actual PTE speaking, and our AI is trained to evaluate your performance using the technology that is employed in the actual examination. So for preparation strategy for IELTS and OET, read the questions beforehand, read the role play cards, and then for PTE, maximize the AI-powered mock examinations. Now, we still have a lot here like vocabulary, grammar, or speaking, but I think we are all excited for us to go to the on-the-spot speaking portion. So maybe Sir Brian can skip the other parts and move to the slides where we answer on the spot. And let me just read a few questions here. Miss Hart said, congratulations, Miss Vergara, who got 8 in IELTS speaking. I hope I can make it too. And then Godfrey is watching us all the way from Zambia. Good afternoon to our African nurses. Then Karen asked, for España Manila, is it video call? Yes, because in Metro Manila, the internet connection is stable. That's why it's video call. Oh, we have a live viewer from Florida. So now almost all of the continents are represented. We have the United States of America, we have America, Asia, Europe, and Australia. Ms. Vergara responded, I'm sure you can get your desired score. Practice is the key, and I was lucky that my topic was actually easy. It was all about social media. Maki Da, the comment, prayers, practice, and guidance from Niner team, and repeat. Okay, Esther is watching us from Kenya. Okay, maybe we can do the on-the-spot speaking. For the first part, IELTS speaking task 1, typical questions. Say something about yourself, your hometown, your job. So I'd like to begin by talking about myself. Then perhaps Sir Brian can talk about his job, and then later I can talk about my hometown. For speaking task 1, we already mentioned earlier that when the examiner asks, you do not have time to prepare. You simply open your mouth, speak your heart out, but don't expect to finish your responses because the examiner will always butt in and never allow you to finish, because in task 1, they only give you around 30 seconds to answer each question because they have a quota to ask you total of 9 questions in 5 minutes. So without further ado, what if my examiner asks me to describe myself? Compare my approach when I teach versus my approach when I'm the one answering the question. And so here we go. Hi, Mr. Examiner. I'm Irvin Neil Temporal, and I can consider myself an ISTJ. According to Myers-Briggs personality test, ISTJ is introverted, sensing, thinking, and judging. We introverts, especially ISTJ, we have this penchant for perfection. And yes, we usually do not want to be late. We are achievers, and it's important for us to build an image that other people will look at us in a positive manner. And there are so many ISTJ world leaders, and some people that I can think of include the former Queen of England, Queen Elizabeth II. There's Warren Buffett, and there's Winston Churchill. For most ISTJs, we are by the book. We follow the standards, and with these skills that we have, we can perhaps lead most of the organizations. That's why we ISTJs might be quiet, but we're just focused and we love innovation. So for me, that's how I'm basically going to describe myself. I started with the concept that something that not all examiners get to hear often. You can also mention Enneagram personality test as a way of describing yourself. And I'm using that kind of non-traditional approach because for most people, I have noticed that they just say, okay, this is what I do, this is where I'm from, this is my favorite food, and typically what I do when I wake up in the morning. That's relatively boring, and examiners have heard that a million times before. That's why I thought of something different, and that's the kind of approach that I have for describing myself. So, as promised, I'm describing myself. We'll ask Sir Brian to talk about his job, and after Sir Brian, I'll be back to talk about my hometown. Sir Brian, tell me something about your job.
I suddenly got a bit nervous. All right, so let me just answer this as I answered during the actual examination. My job is a communication trainer. I've been working with one of the largest test preparation centers in the Philippines for English, which is 9.09er English Review and Tutorial Center. I've been teaching and preparing candidates to take their English exams for the past more than 15 years, and I can say that I'm really very proud of my achievements, having been able to influence the lives of many people and also be instrumental to their success. Seeing my students reach the pinnacle of their ambitions is what makes me wake up every morning and makes me very happy and motivated to keep working in the industry that I have been employed in. So that's
Wow.
just a very simple response.
Guys, remember that you cannot talk forever in task one because chances are the examiner is going to interfere while you are talking. It's not that they don't like you as a person or they hate your response. No, no, no. Don't be paranoid. Don't overthink. It's just that examiners are required to ask you three topics of three questions each, grand total of 9 questions in task one. That's why they are going to cut you off after 30 seconds so they can move on to the next question. So I'm done describing myself using a different approach, mentioning Meyer-Briggs personality test. Sir Brian is done talking about his job. So now I'm going to talk about my hometown. Here we go. I come from Davao City, which is, by the way, the only place in the Philippines with a city, Norte, Sur, Region, De Oro, and Occidental, and also Oriental. For most people, they think of my hometown and associate it with durian, pomelo, but the truth is there's something that most people do not know about my hometown. And what I usually say is if you are in Davao City, it's like you are in Baguio and Boracay at the same time. Why Boracay? The actual coastline of Davao City might not have white sand beaches, but if you travel just a few minutes from the coast of Davao City, you will reach the island garden city of Samal, also part of the Davao region, and we have pristine white sand beaches. And that's not really far, as I've mentioned, only a few minutes away from the coastline of Davao City. But why did I say that you're also in Baguio? Well, that's because if you go to the uplands in Davao City, it's as if you are in Tagaytay, or it's as if you are in Baguio because of the mountainous region where sometimes you can experience fog and temperatures drop to as low as 5 degrees. So the next time around, when you think of Davao, we're not just about durian, we're not just about waling-waling, we're the Baguio and Boracay rolled into one. Sir
That
Brian.
was a fabulous ending. So that was a very vivid discussion of the hometown. Can you imagine? Like all of the details, because most of the people would just say it's nice, it's great, it's a good place, but Sir Irvin provided details that will enable the examiner to envision what he probably has experienced when he was younger living in this hometown. So really, very good, and that's a lengthy response as well. So a lot of vocabulary is in there, so examiners will be able to pick up a lot of uh, words from that particular delivery. Great job, sir.
Thank you. And if I may add before we go to task two, when your examiner asks you to describe your hometown, the first thing that you're supposed to do is think of the stereotype associated with your hometown and then do not discuss that. Think of something else. Say, for instance, if you are from Legazpi, Albay, don't talk about Mayon volcano. If you are from Cebu, avoid lechon, avoid falls, avoid butanding. If you are, say, for instance, from Baguio, avoid Panagbenga Festival, things like that. Again, I am emphasizing that you must give the examiner something new to hear. Apparently, examiners talk to up to 25 candidates in one day. Majority of the 25 candidates are going to give them details that examiners have heard several times before, especially some examiners have been interviewing in the last 20 years. But if there is that one candidate who gives something new or trivial, I'm sure the examiner is more than interested in what you have to say. So do not give them common answers that they have heard before. Okay, now let's move on to task two, where you're going to deliver a speech. So this time we're going to give you lengthy responses, minimum of 1 minute, maximum of 2 minutes. In the actual examination, the examiner is going to give you 1 minute to prepare for your answer. So you're given a scratch paper and a pen. They're just in front of you. You can write an outline. And in fact, you can use this as your guide while you're talking later on. And then 1 minute, that's the minimum. 2 minutes, that's the maximum. But by the second minute, the examiner is going to call your attention and say, hey, 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 time is up. No more talking. So even if you're not finished, you have to stop talking by the second minute because congratulations, you reached the finish line. If for task one, you're expected to talk about for 30 seconds. For task two, 1 to 2 minutes. That's why if for the first part, we need you to be straightforward. For the second part, provide as many details as you can. Be the most talkative person in the world. So now I'm going to ask Sir Brian, what is your favorite color? So while Sir Brian is going to think of his response, we'll give him roughly a minute to prepare for that. In the actual examination, you get to see some bullet points or guide. Say, for instance, why is this your favorite color? Is this also the color of your room? Is this also the color of your clothes? Things like that. But do not be limited to whatever bullet points you see in the guide questions. Ask yourself more questions related to the main topic in order for you to reach the second minute. And if you feel that the examiner, or if you feel that the 2 minutes is not yet over and you can no longer think, or you still have time, then I would rather you talk about the other aspects that are still really related to the main topic in order for you to provide more information in the hope of reaching the finish line, which is 2 minutes. I guess that's enough time for Sir Brian to think. So, in the actual exam, the examiner is going to say, what is your favorite color? You're allowed to talk for 1 to 2 minutes. Your timer starts now.
Should I time myself? 2 minutes, sir?
Up to
Okay,
you.
let's go. 2 minutes. Start now. Probably my favorite color is white. I actually like a lot of colors, but white really strikes me so much because there's something about it that feels clean, fresh, and timeless. I love how it represents elegance and purity at the same time. It's so minimal. And I like that even if you're wearing it, it can make a statement no matter how simple it is. So whether it be in fashion or home design or everyday life or objects, I love the color white. It's just so crisp, it's sophisticated, and it's just some of the qualities that I truly appreciate as a person. For example, when it comes to clothes, I always gravitate towards white outfits, well ironed, crisp shirt, for example, or a perfectly tailored white ensemble would look really good and stylish and timeless. I also love how polished it looks and how easy they are to pair with other colors. But more importantly, I've noticed recently that I gravitate also towards white floral perfumes, particularly gardenia and jasmine. So I've realized that a large portion of my personality is associated with the color white. Just recently as well, I've noticed that I've been eating a lot of vanilla ice cream, and I noticed that it's also white in color. So I just realized that everything that I have in my home or in my everyday life has an influence or a semblance of white. It reminds me so much about the memories, the positive memories and the bright memories that I've had in my life. And it's something that I find so motivating, just staring at the blank white space. It feels like I'm so inspired to do something with it because it's like a blank canvas that I can play with. Okay, so that's 2 minutes already.
Clearly,
Okay.
that's not a templated response. And did you notice that Sir Brian is doesn't sound like someone who's being grilled by a lawyer in court or someone not asked by the principal to come to the principal's office or the guidance counselor's office or the prefect of discipline's office. And Sir Brian was not even trying to impress you. He's just talking, conversing with his best friend, perhaps, not looking at the ceiling, not looking at the wall. And he doesn't look like someone who's about to pee. Basically, that's how you envision yourself in the speaking subjects. Just be calm, just be casual, just be conversational, and you're going to ask, does this approach really work? Well, I, for one, I have taken my IELTS twice, one academic, one general training, one with the British Council, one with IDP. And in one of my two attempts, I got the perfect 9 in speaking. That's with the British Council. And then in one of my two attempts, I got an 8.5 in speaking. That's with IDP. But 8.5, 9, perfect and near perfect. Meaning to say, the approach that we are teaching really works. Now, Sir Brian here has actually taken 3 English examinations: IELTS on paper, IELTS on computer, and then PTE. And for those of you who do not know yet, what we have in our midst right now is a world record holder for IELTS and PTE, someone who has gotten the perfect 9 in all components of IELTS and PTE, and not a lot of people can brag about that kind of achievement. Getting 9 in one subtest is already difficult, but how much more getting 9 in all subtests of 2 English examinations? That's considered to be an unbeatable record. So perhaps you might be wondering what Sir Brian did when he took the examination. He just spoke his heart out. He just talked as if he's conversing with someone who's very dear to him. Okay. And basically, that's how you're going to ace your English examination. So, Sir Brian is done with his speech. Maybe it's my turn. And yeah, looking at the time after this, we can answer some task 3 questions and then wrap up with our discussion.
Okay, so the question that I've selected for Sir Irvin is something that is super common in the IELTS. It's always asked. And the question is, can you describe the school you went to as a child? So that's the question. Can you describe the school you went to as a child?
Okay, maybe I don't have to prepare anymore. I mean, I do not cook. I do not drive. I cannot sing. I cannot dance. I only have 2 skills in life, as I usually say, and that's talk and text. I literally talk all the time. And if I'm not talking, I'm on my phone responding to messages. By the way, that's not the task to respond. Okay. What I'm saying is I don't need time to prepare anymore. So if the examiner asks me, tell me something about your school as a child, your timer starts now. Mr. Examiner, I've been to only 2 schools in my life, and that's the University of the Immaculate Conception in Davao City and the University of the Philippines. But I'm asked to talk about the school I went to when I was younger, and that's none other than the University of the Immaculate Conception in the city of Davao. So from kindergarten all the way to high school, I spent my formative years in this institution. I'd say that this academy is like no other. I know for a fact that there are several schools, colleges, and universities that want to focus on academic achievement or extracurricular activities. Basically, that's not what UIC is known for. We are known for character formation. UIC is actually run by the Religious of the Virgin Mary Sisters. That's why growing up, we always incorporate the importance of having a God fearing or in cultivating god-fearing students. So we are taught to be grateful for everything that we have. We constantly have this kind of communication with the heavenly father. And for me, this is important because there are so many kids nowadays who are able to communicate in good English. They're actually doing well in school, but they don't treat others very well. Like we have bullies all over the place. And I'm so proud to say that that kind of environment with plenty of bullies, that's not really something I've encountered in the 2 plus 6, 8 plus 4, the 12 years that I have spent in the University of the Immaculate Conception. So that's what I love most about my school. Emphasis not on academics, not on extracurricular activities, but more of character formation. We have regular activities like retreat, recollection, in order for us to grow not just mentally, but also spiritually. If in the future I'm going to have a child of my own, I wouldn't think twice and send this baby out. I think that's 2 minutes already. So cut 2 minutes.
2 minutes. All right. Excellent job. Did you notice how extremely I wanted to attend that school. That's for a fact. All right. So you would know that that answer is so unique because it talks about Sir Irvin's personal experiences and the unique traits of the school that he attended, which sets it so differently from other or apart from other universities or institutions. So that's actually a very good answer. And I would also advise that you do the same in your actual exam, like probably capture snippets of your life experiences and then sprinkle them into your response. It's not like you're going to have to talk about a story from start to finish, but you're going to sprinkle a few of those personal insights from your experiences that will help you to boost your answer and make it unique. So good job, sir. And
Thank
of course,
you.
that's a band nine answer. Hello. Of
If not
course.
band 9, 8.5, which are the only two grades I've gotten in the speaking subjects in the
Correct.
actual exam. One 9, one 8.5. Now, let's go to task 3 or the follow-up round. And sometimes it could be personal, sometimes it could be conceptual, but for sure, it's related to your task to responses. So make your task to responses simple if you don't want to be asked complicated questions in task 3. So Sir Brian earlier talked about his favorite color, and that is white. He talked about his room filled with white. He usually wears white clothes. So now I'm going to ask questions related to color. So I'm going to ask probably 2 or 3 questions and then would allow Sir Brian to talk for about a minute per question. But again, because there is time limit here, I'm going to interrupt while Sir Brian is talking because that's just the way it is in the actual examination. Nothing personal. Examiners just butt in while you are talking. Okay, so Sir Brian, are you ready for your follow-up questions?
Certainly, sir.
Okay, so now that you've mentioned colors, let me begin by asking, if you're going to describe the color white to a blind person, how are you going to describe this color?
That is a very interesting question because visually impaired individuals do not have the ability to perceive color, but they can always connect colors with experiences. So if I were to describe the color white to a person, I would say that it is like a cold breeze of air, and that's something that touches your skin. It feels clean, it feels fresh and light. It's the softness that probably touches your face whenever you're looking up into the sky. And it's probably like a very smooth fabric on your skin. It's the feeling of warmth and the embrace of the sun. And probably the best description is it feels like someone showed you kindness more than anything. So if someone is kind to you, generous to you, and loving, then probably you're seeing the color white.
Thank you. So between the two, which one do you prefer? Achromatic or polychromatic?
Well, I would always prefer lots of colors because that brings brilliance or vibrance to the lives of people. So I would go and gravitate towards polychromatic. I love different colors, and I believe that white is actually a, a very special color because it's a combination of all of the colors in the spectrum, and it helps me to kind of realize that when life is so colorful and vibrant, there's really meaning to life, and there is a representation for everyone, and the unique preferences of people are all represented because there's so many colors, a multitude of colors everywhere.
For a young toddler who has no idea what color is, how are you going to explain the concept of color? That's your last question.
Probably, to me, I would teach a young child that color is not just what we see visually, it's what we feel in what we see. So I feel like it's very important that the youth be made to realize that um, colors are not just a representation of a particular hue or tint, but there's so much more to it. It can be like the big fluffy clouds in the sky, or it could be a teddy bear and the warmth that they're feeling with that, or what they can associate with that. So I believe that they should associate colors with happy, bright memories or dark memories in their lives so that there will be a significance to the color that they perceive.
Yay! Listening to Sir Brian talk, he did not force himself to use figures of speech. He did not force some idiomatic expressions or inject idiomatic expressions in his responses just so he can impress the examiner, because that's not what the speaking subtest is all about. At the end of the day, if that's what examiners are looking for, maybe the examiners will just ask you to list down all of the big words that you know. Again, speaking, the speaking subtest in the IELTS is not a formal interview. It's more of a casual conversation. And that's exactly what Sir Brian did. Don't be afraid if there are times when you have to say, because that means you are a human being, you are thinking, and what you're saying is not memorized or scripted. Examiners will definitely know if it's templated. That's because you sound like a robot. And Sir Brian never sounded like that. It was just so natural from beginning to end. So, ladies and gentlemen, Sir Brian Martin Shelson.
Thank you, Sir Irvin. So probably we have. Do we still have time? Like a few more minutes, probably, just to ask Sir Irvin a couple more questions, I guess, for part three, and then we'll end the
Yeah, I
discussion.
think looking at the time, it's 9:53, and we have maximum of 7 minutes left.
Perfect. Just the right amount of time. So let's ask Sir Irvin some questions about education because his question in part two was about education. So these are just some questions that I've thought of about education. So the first one is, let's talk about exams. Do you think that exams are the best way to measure a student's ability? Why or why not?
The answer is no. When I was in college, we actually didn't have any examination in our course, BA Communication Research, because instead of answering questions like multiple choice questions or fill in the blanks, that's not what our professors believed in. Our professors wanted us to submit research papers and we had to defend them. If you're going to ask multiple choice questions, these kinds of questions encourage people to memorize. But that's not what critical thinking is all about. And that's not what education is. We do not memorize for us to be educated individuals. For us to express ourselves, we have to consider all the aspects of communication. We have to listen in order for us to say something. We have to read in order for us to write something, and vice versa. The best way to extract this kind of, or the best way to assess that kind of ability among the students is not to ask them questions and they just merely answer true or false, but you have to bring out the best in them by asking them to come up with an essay or defending their paper in front of a panel. That's why, for me, exams are not the yardstick or barometer of the student's skills and abilities.
Secondly, Sir Irvin, should students be allowed to choose their degree programs in university, or should parents do this for them?
This is exciting because now we live in the modern day age where people get to have a lot of choices as compared before. They can only choose from engineering to accountancy to architecture, but now we have some weird courses like food technology, or in UP we have what we call family life and community development. I'd say it's always best if we ask the person to pick a specific pathway or what kind of person he wants to be in the future. We can only achieve this if we empower that individual to decide. Parents might have a say because parents are the ones sending the kids to school. But actually, it is wrong to think that parents must decide for their kids. In fact, kids are being given to parents in order for these parents to become better individuals because apparently it's not always we are not always given what we want. We just have to deal with the cards that we are dealt. That's why it's important to ask the child or to ask the kid or the student perhaps to determine which kind of degree he or she would like to have in college.
And the final question is so controversial, Sir Irving. Do you think that having a university degree is the only indicator or the only way by which people can succeed in life?
The answer is no. If I'm going to share my experience, I earned my degree 18 months after I started 9.09er in 2007. So I started as a working student, opened Niner in April of 2007, graduated in October of 2008, managing 9.09er and my studies at the same time. So if it's true that degree is always a prerequisite to success, how come I opened a review center when I was in third year college and gained number one status nationwide in October of 2007 without securing my college diploma? As far as I'm concerned, diploma is just a piece of paper. You can be the most successful person in the world even if you don't have master's degree. And I thank you.
Brilliant. And probably a lot of people will remember that response as well because that's a very controversial topic. Right. So there you go. These are all very effective ways to answer questions. And of course, there are differences in how you would respond to questions in IELTS. What's important is that you're making sense, you're answering the question, you're not going off topic, and you're showing the full breadth and extent of your language ability during your English exams. All right. So probably we'll hear some final words from Sir Irvin and some promotions perhaps before we wrap up our session for tonight.
Thank you, Sir Brian. Looking at some of the comments here, attendees have indicated their location, and we have a question: why does IELTS examination expire? It's proven by Cambridge and a lot of major universities that if not used regularly, the communication skill of one person is likely to deteriorate. That's why in most English examinations, the results expire after 2 years, except for the MET or the Michigan English Test that does not have any expiration. So we would like to thank everyone for joining us tonight. We had a good time because it's been quite a while since the last time we did an on-the-spot speaking, and maybe the other time it was with Sir Philip. But for now, that it's me and Sir Brian, this is our way of sharing with you our abilities. And Sir Brian is done with on-the-spot writing task 2, and now we're done with on-the-spot speaking. Perhaps next month, Sir Brian is going to do on-the-spot writing task 1, and that's 4 Mondays from now. But 2 Mondays from now, we're going to have the British Council to invite you to upcoming face-to-face events in several cities in the Philippines. And this is the first quarter. That's why you'll notice there are events left and right. With the social political condition in the Philippines and the inflation, it's clearly an indicator why so many people would like to try their chances of going overseas. And because we have left and right events, face to face and online, we want you to maximize this one. Once again, we would like to thank AMN Healthcare International for allowing us to share our expertise. Thank you to the generosity of AMN that nurses get to prepare and take their English examination without spending a single centavo. Because if you're qualified for the sponsorship, or if you're qualified under the sponsorship of AMN, you're endorsed to us for your English examination. And all you have to do is play the part and invest time and effort in your review and examination. Again, thank you, AMN Healthcare International. So, guys, don't forget, every Monday at 9 p.m., it's AMN Academy. We hope to see you 2 Mondays from now. Thank you and goodbye.